St. Pete, as well as Eckerd College. And all of those people have been engaging in conversations with us. And we wanted to open up the conversation to get more input. And my colleague, Jessica Esteves, is going to give you some information about the truth, racial justice, and healing concept and what that would mean and look like. Our intent today, Karen, if you can help me out, because I know we had a specific intent that and I don't want to do that any injustice.
Sure, Michelle. So our intent today, we're just beginning this conversation. We have been in conversations with St. Petersburg College, Eckerd College, Stetson University, and the For Healthy St. Pete to explore this idea of a consortium focused on higher education and racial justice. And what we hope today is to open up the discussion for the first time to the community. We'll be doing a lot of the talking. This is a tight agenda today because we have a lot that we want to introduce to the community. However, we'll be providing a way for you to provide feedback. And we really want to collectively a group that was interested in this topic.
Karen, you're coming in and out for me. I don't know if she is for everybody else. But is everybody able to hear Karen okay? Because you're coming in and out.
She's breaking up.
Yeah, it's hard to hear you.
Okay, I'll try again. So I was saying that this is the first time we've had a broader convening of the community. We'll be talking a lot and introducing concepts today. We'll be talking about this and what is the role of higher education. But we'll be following up. We want to hear from you via a survey post where we want community input. We wanted to convene people that were interested in this topic. So when we have broader convenings in the future, we know who wants to be at this table with us. So I am going to now turn this over to, we have with us today a poet from Stetson Law School. She is a law school student in the Social Justice Advocacy program. Her name is Naya Knighton, and she is going to start us off with a poem today.
Thank you, Karen. Hi, everyone. My name is Naya, like Karen stated, and I'll go ahead and start this poem that I wrote a few years ago. So thank you. I saw her kinky hair in the reflection of my mirror. Her 6-foot stature shadowed over me like a moon balancing over a still lake to catch a glimpse of all its glory in the night sky. Her wings escaped the bathroom door as she crouched in the small space I had set for her. I wondered, did she fly, blackbird, or did she make a nest here, somewhere tucked in brown skin and wide hips, standing in the mirror, thinking of the little black girls who played hopscotch on summer days, thinking of the little black boys who played cops and robbers with toy guns and cops with real ones. Did she cry like me? I wondered. Or did she just make room for another black body at her table? And I watched as they turned legacies into hashtags and 140-character obituaries, use bodies as political bargaining chips, 6 million in prison, 423,000 dead from a pandemic, 500 in cages. And I wonder, the moment Sandra got her wings, did she plead with God for another chance to raise those little black girls that got lost in the rubble, that got slammed to the ground with nothing to cling to but torn bikinis and flashbacks? And they still come, unexpectedly, even after there's no indictment, and the cop returns to his desk, long after the tweets burn out, and the Justice For t-shirts stop selling. She still has flashbacks. And I wonder, Did Sandra ever visit her? Did Sandra visit Toyin too? Did she visit others? Because there are always others. Thank you so much. And I'm going to turn it back over to Jessica. Thank you.
Thank you, Naya. I wanted like to sit with that. I feel like I wanted the words as you were sharing them to like come up on the screen, and that was strong. I appreciate you taking the time to share that power and that narrative and that voice with us. Wow, so much there that I wish I could unpack, that I wish I could process. And so I might have to hit you up later and be like, hey, can we talk a little bit? Because that's how I learn and that's how I grow. And so thank you all so much for being here. Thank you all for being willing to be a part of this process. Just recently, just like Naya warmed us up, I am wanting to invite you to think about the political action that we're taking together, as Naya just did. Amanda Gordon, who hopefully you've all been introduced to, shared in one of her TED Talks when she does poetry and teaching poetry that all art is political, and that the decision to use your voice is the political act. As you just saw Naya so beautifully illustrate, our narratives, our voice, our sharing what we believe and what we think. I'm going to drop that quote, and I hope that Naya can also put the name of her poem and how we can reach out to her so that she can continue to inspire us in the community through her voice and her power. The Truth, Racial Healing and Transformation initiative was birthed out of the W.K. Kellogg Foundation, and it is something that everybody has access to. In 2015-16, a conglomerate of leaders, over 150 community individuals, different sectors, representing and having a reach of over 200 million people, came together to inform through the initiatives of the W.K. Kellogg Foundation, how can we have this conversation? How can we build on this work? And to that end, on 2016, I believe, we came together through a special convening, and the W.K. Kellogg Foundation launched an initiative of influence. And this is an initiative that has been rooted all across the United States, birthed out of a really international movement. And there's different ways that you can follow that. If you can pull up the framework that really invites folks to think about narrative, thinking about narrative as it relates to truth, right? So if you go to healourcommunities.org, you will find information about this. And I want to just walk you through the first main tenets of the Truth, Racial Healing, and Transformation framework. I don't know, maybe by a quick show of hands, how many folks have already heard about this? Just raise your hand, those of you that have your camera on, and if you don't, you have a little icon on your computer that you can click to let us know. If it's new to you, right, I want to show you, and if you keep scrolling, Karen, there's a little bit more on the website. This is the website, healourcommunities.com, right here. Yes, this is where I want us to stop. And I want to tell you about the 5 tenets of this framework, right? It starts with narrative change, right? And this is where we're wanting to elevate truth. We're wanting to elevate what stories, what are the stories, what are the narratives that we're choosing to tell, and the when, the how, the why, because those narratives start to convey what we believe. They start to say what we stand for. And we're also learning through already its short movement. And like I said, a lot of the work that the W.K. Kellogg Foundation had done prior, we're learning that there are systems, right? Especially education systems, different sectors that are the ones that get to decide what are the stories that are being told, right? And so that is where the model starts, sharing these narratives, unpacking these truths, this history that has been shared or not shared. From there, we walk into, and it's not, although it's portrayed linearly, I want you to try to reimagine it as you need to in your mind, right? I think those that can be more creative can do so, but you know, I'm sharing to you the way it has been passed down to me as a racial equity, as a national racial equity and healing fellow with the W.K. Kellogg Foundation as well. So the next step is relationship building, right? There needs to be a really authentic and genuine sense of healing that happens, right? And in this model, we use racial healing circles, right? This is an opportunity where we practice really building relationships, going across the aisle, having a relationship for some of us with our rage, for some of us with the absence of it, with some of us with the apathy, with the comfort, with the privilege. And we sit and have that conversation in an intimate setting and in an authentic way. And this is an opportunity to build sustained listening. This is not a one-off, folks, right? In this model, we're saying one meeting, this meeting is not going to do it. It's sustained listening. From there, we go to the next piece of the tenets and the framework, which is separation, the law, and the economy. And for some of us who may have some of this shared language that the Foundation for a Healthy St. Pete has been elevating, and a lot of our community partners have been elevating, right? This is social determinants of health with a racialized lens, right? We're looking at issues of community. We're looking at issues of education. We're looking at issues of safety and how those are integrated in our systems. And that's it. That's the model. Narrative, truth, racial healing, relationships, and transformations through systems, right? Separation, law, and economy. I invite you all to go definitely and spend some time on the website, ask questions. There are multiple sites. Some of them are based in communities. Others are based in institutions of higher learning. One of the national partners for that is the Association for American Colleges and Universities. And as a partner to them, we have come on and said, okay, how can we create truth, racial healing, and transformation campuses? And if Karen can, well, you all can, I'll put on the chat later, there's a website for truth, racial healing, and transformation campus centers that is birthed out of the American Association of Colleges and Universities. And they have committed to making everyone in their membership as possible a truth, racial healing campus center. And so to that purpose, to that end, we sit here today. We're wanting to explore what would it look like, you know, and we're learning from the existing campuses. We had an inaugural class of 10 campuses, and you can see that on the AAC&U's website. And we just recently welcomed a second set of cohort of campuses to bring up our numbers to about 25, 26 campuses. Some of them get financial support from the AAC&U. Others have chosen to say, you know what? We'll raise our own support. We got this. We're just committed, and we want to be a part of the network and the community. That's the conversation that our region is embarking on and that we're wanting to go to next. With that, I want to give you an example of what that might look like. We want to give you an examples of how our community is already doing that. And so I'm going to invite Julie to take us to the next stage. Thank you, Karen, for sharing that framework. And Julie, if you can introduce what the Pinellas Remembrance Project is doing.
Yes, absolutely. And thank you for inviting me here today. This is a fabulous group, and I'm glad to see the positive energy around this topic. I am a member of a local organization called Pinellas Remembers, and we are a group of many people with many different stakeholders. I don't have the exact number in front of me. Last time, the exact numbers in front of me, but on my last time of looking, we had 40 to 50 community partners. So some of those community partners are University of South Florida St. Pete, Foundation for a Healthy St. Pete, and representatives from other people, other organizations that I see here represented today. But what Pinellas Remembers does, it's a group that is is a local part of a larger national effort. And that national effort comes from the Equal Justice Initiative. If you're familiar with that organization out of Montgomery, I can post in the chat a link. But one of their initiatives involves memorializing racial violence and lynchings that took place in local communities. And so they call it the Community Remembrance Project. And we are one of those local communities that is working toward putting up a historical marker for lynchings that took place in St. Petersburg. And we're on track to install a marker as soon as we work out the logistics with the mayor's office, but it should be, upcoming pretty soon. And our video tells about that process and why it's important. So one other thing that I wanted to note is that I'm glad you brought up narrative change, because the people at the EJI see putting up these kinds of historical markers as a tool of narrative change. It's about changing how we talk about our community, how we talk about the past, and just being more honest and truthful about history. So with that said, I think Karen has the video ready to roll, and I hope you enjoy.
Never even imagined since it was incorporated into a town back in 1903. One year in particular, after that, 19, stands out as a pivotal moment in the city's young history. That year, the airboat line took its first passenger flight from St. Pete to Tampa, launching the commercial airline industry. The St. Louis Browns came to town that year in February to practice, and Major League Baseball's spring training season was born. But by the fall, this bustling town of 10,000 people would stage one of the most horrific, lawless, and unthinkable acts of inhumanity any person could do to another person. And it all played out at the intersection of Old 9th Street South and 2nd Avenue South. What are we walking up on?
We're walking up to the site of the lynching of John Evans on November 12, 1914. They drug him from the jail, which was over on Central Avenue, to this spot, and they hung him.
John Evans was accused of killing his boss and assaulting his boss's
That's
wife,
why I think we're
but
in
he
the
never
wrong
faced
spot.
those charges in court, as 1,500 people gathered to watch him hang from the light post at the southwest corner. Something happened that turned this lynching into a slaughter.
But he was desperate to live, as we would all be, and he clung to the pole with arms and legs. And an unidentified white woman in a car fired a gun, and fatally, it was a fatal shot, and killed him. But for the next 10 minutes,
Just gonna try to share and unshare and see if I can improve the volume here.
men, women, and children opened fire and riddled his body with bullets.
Evans' body hung on that light post for days as a warning to blacks in the area. Now, the Equal Justice Initiative wants this spot to serve as a memorial and reminder. The Community Remembrance Project Coalition has placed markers at nearly a dozen spots throughout the country, recognizing lynching victims. Gwendolyn Reese says John Evans wasn't the only person lynched in St. Petersburg, but where he was murdered on Old 9th Street South is significant. This is sacred ground.
Yes, it is.
You know, and it seems like it's no accident that Dr. King's name is on this street.
Never really thought about it like that, so thank you for bringing that forth, because it resonates with me. It probably is no accident whatsoever. And in a real sense, Dr. Martin Luther King was assassinated. He had committed no crime. There was no trial. So in many minds, that can also be seen as a lynching of sorts. Yes.
Wow, so it serves as a double memorial.
It does. It does, and a double opportunity for teaching.
And that's the reason why there's Black History Month.
Thank you for that. I strongly encourage everybody, right, to visit the Pinellas Remembrance Project. As you see, I've posted on the link there, and there's more videos that can help elevate some of this narrative, some of this truth, right? And again, like we said, we wanted to start to open an invitation for having this conversation. We want to invite you all, community members that have joined and different institutions that have joined. What would be your reason for narrative changing, for unpacking some of the things that have not been said? The Pinellas Remembrance Project has a couple of videos, and one specifically speaks to the value and the need to tell the truth. And you heard that in this one as well, to acknowledge the past. We cannot heal until we acknowledge and name these things, right? There's the lynching remembrance, be able to acknowledge the terror and oppression. And there are different members of our community that have different reasons by which they engage and need to address, and the systems that have now started to protect that, right? Unfortunately, there's poverty, there's inequity, there's racism, and we need to move forward through this collective reckoning. And so we wanted to get our conversation started. We have a panel that we've invited to kind of start to pose their reasons or their thoughts for what is the role of higher education in racial justice, in racial healing, in narrative change, in relationship building, in transformative work, right? So this is an invitation, and we want you all to inform what would a consortium look like in our area. There's going to be a chat available. I mean, there's a survey available. We definitely invite you all to speak on the chat here and let us know thoughts that may be coming up. And more importantly, directly contact any of the organizations, the sponsoring institutions on this event, and reach out to them directly and say, hey, I want to talk to you about my thoughts of what a consortium for truth, racial healing, and transformation could look like in our area. Reach out to them directly because they're really available and open to have that conversation. And if for some reason you reach out and your email bounced back, I'll put my email on the chat as well. You can email me and I'll bug them as well, right? That's why we're all in it together. It takes a village. We want to begin to explore these narratives. And for that, we have our panel. I've asked our panel to introduce themselves, right? We've asked them to kind of go around and share who they are, share an element of their identity that is important and valuable to share in this space, and to give us their thesis statement about what is the role of higher education in racial healing, right? After they each introduce themselves, they give us that thesis statement, we're gonna come back and hear what each of their institutions are doing, right? And we wanna hear from the community. If there's something you haven't heard, we want you to put it on the chat. We want you to call us in. We want to step into the action together, and we can only do that when we share this work. So although I did not tell which of our panelists will start first, I am definitely going to ask Devana, if you are comfortable and willing. You knew I was coming for you, didn't you? You looked up right then.
I knew you were.
Good. I'm going to ask you to go next, and then John, I'm coming to you, so you get ready. Thank you, Devana.
Thank you so very much. So one of the things that I've been thinking about in this theme of things that we can do for higher education and our responsibility, I definitely see higher education as being thought leaders, educators, and conduits to our community. And in doing so, we must adapt a positionality of anti-racism, right? And really dig deep into that. And when I think about anti-racism, I'm thinking about the acknowledgement, first and foremost, acknowledging the part in which we have played in racism throughout these countries, to look at the foundation of higher education organizations and to really speak on the part that we played. So definitely acknowledging racism, naming it, identifying it, and then transforming our system. So moving into transforming, and I think, Jessica, you talked a little bit about that transformation. Some examples of that transformation is looking at our policies, our procedures, looking at the things that we need to change in order for us to become an anti-racist organization, mitigating bias in the hiring process, and reviewing our curriculum to make sure that we're utilizing an anti-racist pedagogy, what it is that we're doing to teach our students, to help them to understand what it means to be anti-racism. So really digging deep and making sure that we take a look at ourselves, right? And admitting to some of the ills that we have caused as it relates to being racist. But then figuring out ways to fund efforts, because we're always talking about acknowledgement and transforming. And the only way that we're going to be able to do this is to have the funding to do so. So transforming our systems and funding our system, engaging with our students, engaging with our community, engaging with our leaders, political, administrative, and otherwise, to talk about what anti-racism looks like in higher education. I wanted to make sure, I know I'm Devonna Pierre. I am the Director of Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion at St. Petersburg College. I really wanted to get my points out there. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Devonna. John, if you're ready to introduce yourself and give us your response to the question. And
Sure.
then for you, Shivani.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. Happy to be here. I'm John Arthur, USF faculty anthropology professor on the St. Petersburg campus. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about teaching and how it is to be in the classroom and how we need to engage our students. And I think it's a moral obligation as faculty members to educate our students about past and current social and economic injustices and inequity. Liberal arts and specifically social sciences addresses race and social justice issues in almost every course. That is why liberal arts needs to be really the central pillar of any higher education institution. While teaching students about the long systemic history of racism and sexism is powerful and necessary, it's not enough. We need to do more in higher education than having students leave a course and understanding and agreeing about the problems that we have today. To make a more significant positive difference in society is to have our students be more comfortable living in a range of multicultural settings. This is a challenge if all the students are white. If we have a diverse faculty, staff, and student body, then we can change our perceptions of the world in one which is diverse, vibrant, and accepting of all races and cultures. Another issue, and I'm gonna get you into the weeds here a little bit because we have to engage students in difficult issues of race, is that something that doesn't get very much attention is that the largest society is socially and economically stratified. Higher education is extremely stratified between untenured and tenured professors. One of the primary ways of evaluating faculty is through student evaluations. Teaching is not easy, and it's not always preaching to the choir. And if you've done it long enough, you will face racist and sexist comments in the classroom. So untenured faculty fear that if they begin to tell the truth of systemic racism, that they may receive criticism from their students in the form of poor evaluations. So to conclude, we need to find a better way of evaluating teachings so untenured faculty have more freedom in the classroom to address these issues of race, sexism, and other types of injustices that have happened in the past and are currently happening in our society today. Jessica, over to you.
Thank you, John. Great, great, great kernels. Remember, we're opening up, we're opening up the idea, anti-racist organization, a moral obligation to evaluate and have difficult conversations. So please, everybody on the chat, how would you answer this question? What is the role of higher education in racial justice, healing, truth, narrative change, transformation? So I want to see the chat lighting up because you all are giving everybody that's here their marching orders. So please take advantage of that. Shivani and then Julie.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks so much for having me. I definitely echo everything I just heard. But first and foremost, I am a first generation Puerto Rican Guyanese queer woman born and raised in the Bronx. I was working for 4 years as an attorney. Well, actually, I'm actually a USF alumni and a Stetson alumni. I was part of the first graduating class of the Social Justice Advocacy program. So, yeah. And I am currently working as an attorney in the Bronx, one of the poorest congressional districts in the US. For 4 years, I did housing rights, where we would organize, actually go into the community, organize residents to bring class action suits against their landlords for really like horrendous conditions in their living situations. Currently, I'm working with K-12 students with disabilities, just to give you a little of my background, and I'm working on a project right now with school integration. And so using elements of movement lawyering to culminate with school integration in New York City. With all that said, my 2 cents in this topic is every decision I've made in my career has always been around the elements of access to opportunity. We need to provide more opportunities for the community to access the things that around them. And in a very realistic sense, these universities are in poor communities. And so reaching out to the community, asking the community themselves what the community needs. I think a lot of times we can theorize about it, but it's as simple as going into the community and asking them directly, what do they want? What do they want to see from this space? What do they want to see from this community and this connection? That's also a huge part of movement lawyering. In terms of the school integration, pipeline programs. So seeing elements of themselves within leaders. So teachers in the classroom, we can use our colleges of education to bring more people of color in the classroom as teachers, as administrators, as so that these students K through 12 can see themselves in those roles and moving on. And then secondarily to that is having a pipeline for students in K through 12 to the university. So going into those community K through 12 schools and creating a pipeline program to your university. The biggest thing, growing up growing up as I did in the Bronx is like seeing yourself in these spaces and working towards that. But totally open to more conversation.
Fabuloso. There's a lot to unpack here. I love you, all of you who are putting there in the chat, extra credit to you, A pluses, keep them coming, right? We want to call in, right? We're hearing a little bit of the narratives here. We're wanting to create together, reimagine together. What is the role of higher education? And is that different than what the community is doing? And so, we want to blend it in. We want to hear a little bit from Julie to tell us a little bit about herself and her perspective. Julie?
Hey, Jessica, thanks. And welcome, everyone. I'm Julie Rocco. I'm a white female, she, her, hers are my pronouns. I'm a member of the LGBTQ+ community, and I am the Senior Community Engagement Advocate at the Foundation for Health St. Petersburg. When I thought about this question, I actually talked to some friends, even to get their input and their perspective, and I took some notes. So I'm just going to kind of move and groove through my notes here. But I thought about how do we use education as the tool to shape our world, to move towards race equity? And we've heard it many times that education is the greatest equalizer that provides the opportunity for economic stability, and it actually has the ability to change the trajectory of generational poverty and move towards generational wealth and health and well-being. It shifts the predictability of someone's zip code and a lifespan. So when we hold up the mirror, though, of our current educational institutions and systems, it's evident that they're embedded with systemic racism that has a Eurocentric value system that promotes the ongoing caste system of hierarchy of human value. And so when we think about what's the role in racial justice with higher ed institutions, they've become the microcosm in many respects of white supremacy and privilege that we see in the broader community. So how do you shift that? How do you dismantle that? What's the responsibility to do that and look at the policies and practices and the narratives that are being perpetuated? And how do you create an opportunity where everybody can fully participate in the process of the opportunities that the higher ed institution can promote? So started thinking about, well, let's look at folding in. And what are the hiring practices of faculty and staff? What are the research priorities? What are the procurement policies when there are vendor needs that an institution may have? The recruitment, the admissions process, the culture when you step onto a college campus. What's the responsibility of the institution? And then when we think about it from a perspective of who's attending these institutions, often in an urban setting, it's the individuals, the residents. So we're creating the opportunity for live, workplace, study and stay, trajectory of race equity in our community. That's a role, that's a responsibility. So thanks.
Drop the mic, folks. Drop the mic. Julie, Shivani, John, Devana, they came in hot, people, right? I hope you're noticing. I love all of you who are taking the time and are dropping knowledge on the chat because we need it, right? We need to create something that hasn't been created. I was like, I reacted, Julie, when you were like, microcauses of white supremacy. I was like, oh my gosh, is everybody ready? Right? Is everybody ready? What is the I of higher education? And Devana, I'm coming to you here next, right? You want to hear what are the things that some of these institutions are doing? And I want you to call us to task, team. How is it different than what's already happening in the community? There's higher education, and then there's the community, right? So you're gonna hear a little bit of what our institutions are doing right now, and I want you to drop in the chat. I'm hearing a little bit of narrative change. I'm hearing about training, hiring practices. Why is that different than what the community might be doing? And you're gonna hear from our panelists what their institutions are doing right now. Devana, take us away.
So one of the things I will say is I don't believe that it's the institution and the community. I don't believe that we are separate entities. We are separate entities, but we have to work one together in order to ensure that, for instance, St. Petersburg College, that we are working with the community, working with the business community, and doing those things to meet the needs that are necessary. I see my colleague, Mike Ramsey on the line, and Mike Ramsey, what we're doing with our workforce, we are looking at what the needs are in the community and with the workforce community, and making sure that we can supply those needs. So we're taking into consideration, for instance, the needs of the business community, but then also the need of our community, and making sure that those of us in the community, those that need the education in order to get a better positionality within the workforce, that we are doing those types of things. We have so many, I'm not necessarily sure if I can name off all of the things in the time that we have, but St. Petersburg College is very much so ingrained into the Pinellas community, in all the communities, Clearwater, Pinellas County, as well as St. Petersburg and Tarpon Springs. And we're making sure that we are listening to the community as a whole, but also that workforce community as well, that business community as well. So we have so many different things that we have going on, but definitely that workforce is what we are doing in order to ensure that we're meeting the needs across the board.
Gracias, Devana. Okay, so I'm hearing, this relationship building, right? Think of the model. We're thinking about how do we cultivate lasting, sustaining relationships that thrive and create a pipeline of leadership, right? That break that down. Thank you for that, Devana. And again, reach out to our panelists and our sponsoring institutions directly to hear about. I really thank you so much for those of you who are dropping on the chat. Here's the things, Year Up. Here's a specific example of community partnerships, linking what the higher education can bring to our community, right? So let's bring it on, John, do you want to tell us a little bit about what's happening on your neck of the woods?
Yeah, sure. So we've had a lot of changes at USF, if you've been following that, so with consolidation. But I think we have a task force, and I think Karen can help probably fill in the blanks, but we've really reached out to the community to try to bring in students of color, which has been, over the last couple of years, the numbers of diverse students have just fallen with the different standards that have occurred at USF and different types of priorities, if you will, that maybe some of the leaders at USF has taken. So I think that's very important, and I'm very excited about the steps that we've taken over the last couple of months to do that. And then we also have a land acknowledgement statement that represents and demonstrates, and Michelle, Dr. Madden has been working on this for a couple of years, where we acknowledge that the land that the campus is on is not our land. It's indigenous land, and it's always belonged to the indigenous people for thousands of years. So those two things I think are very exciting, and I'm looking forward to working with the community. And I think we got some tough listening going on in the future. That's definitely going to be something that we're going to have to deal with.
Thank you for that, John. Yes, right. So I heard inclusion, right? We need to be intentional. This work doesn't just happen because we want it to. It has to be strategic. It has to be intentional. It has to be persistent, right? So the inclusion of people of color, right? How do we create safe spaces, comfortable spaces, sacred spaces to make that happen? Thank you for that, John. Thank you, Devonna. Shivani, do you have a little update for us on what Stetson's doing and what's going on that side of the world?
Stetson has a social justice advocacy program that students can take part in. Through that program, they can build projects within the community. And so there are many instances where students will work in the community through that program. And they have other initiatives that Dr. Judith Scully is working on. I can't speak too much in detail about them, but there are opportunities at Stetson to connect with the community, and they do want to grow and elaborate on that.
Thank you for that, Shivani. And you see, I'm told I shouldn't call everybody family right away because not everybody might be willing to be a part of my family right away. So I'm going to say comunidad, community here, shared community for right now. You already see our time is running out, but I really like the question my brother Carl has posted on the chat. And so maybe I'm gonna put Devonna on the spot here and see if anybody else on our panel wants to answer it and have it be like one of the questions. But everybody, put all the questions. Why should Black and Brown and Indigenous communities or oppressed communities trust post-secondary education? Give us reasons to believe that when we're calling you to task, you're going to show up for us. And everybody can answer, but I'm going to put Devonna on the spot and have her give us our 1 minute response.
Oh man, a 1 minute response, really?
Time. we want more after this, right?
You know, to tell you the truth, Carl, I can't point to an example to say, this is why you should trust higher education institutions, because I honestly believe that we have a lot of work that we need to do as a whole. What I can tell you is when I look at my organization and I look at the commitment of our leadership and I look at the commitment of our staff people and our administration, I can say that they unequivocally that they care for our students, regardless of where they're coming from, regardless of their background, regardless of their socioeconomic status. I can say without equivocation that the staff at St. Petersburg College, the folks that you engage with here, from the president down, care about our students and want to see them succeed, and they're looking to impact those lives. I hope that answers your question, Carl.
I don't know if it did, but I know it's a great place to start. I heard we got to believe that you care enough to get in it with me. John.
But wait, Jessica, not just believe, look at our actions, look at the things that we're doing. Look at what we're doing to show you that we care. Look at the things that we're providing for our students to ensure that they are successful. Look at the strides that we're making to make sure that even in a global pandemic, a racial pandemic, a budget crisis, look at the things that we are doing in order to make sure that our students are being successful.
Yes, thank you. Yes.
Sorry.
Good. Yes. So it's not just believe, I believe faith is active. It's not just the words. I get to see you walking the talk, your hands, your feet, everything. And this is systemic, right? You talked about hiring practices. John talked about our safety in the classroom, right? We talked about how we evaluate our faculty. Julie, you wanted to add something?
Actually, I wanted to segue for Dr. Griffith to enter this conversation real quick.
Sure. Good afternoon, everyone. Tashika here. I have the privilege of serving alongside of Dr. Pierre. I know we all hear the passion in her voice, but I do want to just follow up on some of the points that were raised. And Carl, to your question about trust, this is something that actively I've been talking to the college for quite a long time about this notion of race and anti-racism. And I always try to bring it down to a common ground. And the common ground is, how do you build trust with anyone? It's very personal, and it will vary by the individual, but how you build it is you get to know. So I think that as a college, one of the great things that we're doing is, as best as we can, we form the relationships with the students to understand what their values are, because my value is going to look a bit different than what a student from a different generation, a different racial background, ethnic, political, you name it. So the trust comes in learning about what matters to me. And I think that that's something that we need to pay special attention to, because I think sometimes even, you know, with our best intentions, we tend to complicate a lot of the issues when fundamentally we're all human. We want to be listened to, we want to be heard. And then from there, we build the bridge of what really, you know, trust is built on. So I think that it's important, going back in terms of higher education and what our role is. Our role is to remind everybody that we're lifelong learners in this journey. So my responsibility, I think, as an administrator at SVC, is your experience in the classroom, but I want to make sure when you graduate that you apply every experience, every lesson that you've been taught, you've learned, to your job, to your entrepreneur opportunity. So having that relationship is really how we build the trust. And I think it transcends a lot of the issues. I think that's what we kind of jump past, because we're kind of thinking about the grandiose goal, but we need to bring it back to the foundational. I need to get to know what matters to you, and we need to build on that. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Thank you so much for that, Shika. I think it's so important for us to remember, right? There's some stuff we have to deal with, you know, internally as higher education. I'm hearing it, right? There's some safety issues, there's some hiring practices, there's some curriculum. And as we're doing that, we're showing that we're also listening and building relationship in the community. We want to get to know you. We want to get to know your values. We want to know what is important to you. And that is where we're starting here today. We don't have enough time. There are some that do trust. There are some that don't trust. I have been doing work in higher education for over 10 years. And I don't have a doctorate. So there's some folks that in higher education don't look at me really well. They don't think I have reached all the accolades, right? And there's some folks that value my lived experience. I'm hearing today from our panel, for the institutions that have shown up, they value our lived experiences, and they want those to show up in the systems, in the work, in the operations of what we're getting done. So we don't have enough time, but I'm going to turn it over to Karen, because we've heard a lot today. And again, if it got you started, if it got you going, kudos to all of you who put words on the chat. Gracias. Love it. We need more of that. Email us, contact all of the individuals here that are wanting to co-create together. Karen, close us out. And I know Mike is gonna leave us wanting even more.
Man, thank you, Jessica, for bringing the energy today to this conversation, to all of our panelists, to our poets, to our community members. We are just getting started. I feel like we just got into the conversation and we have to stop. So I hope we gave you a taste for this work. It's not intended to be a one-way conversation like it's been largely today. We want to hear your voices. I put it in, and I'm going to hit you over the head with this survey link. We really want to get your feedback. We want to solidify what you're telling us. We want to capture your words and your thoughts and your feelings around this. We are applying to be a part of a summer institute around truth, racial healing, and transformation, so that we can learn more and come together as a community around this and fulfill our role as higher educational institutions. So I'm very excited to close us out with a poem by Dr. Micah Johnson. He is an assistant professor at USF and also an artist across many media. Micah, over to you.
Thank you. Beautiful business. Beautiful, beautiful business. This topic, this hour, I was once on the other side, from the cold concrete of battered flour, living in the sour shadows of this powerful ivory shallow tower. And now I'm so far removed that I too get confused until my mama says, you know, Black folks wasn't even allowed in these schools. There's a social responsibility that universities can never lose. Centuries of academic advances in the context of racial and class inequality is a simple fundamental truth. What is a university without unity? What is a campus without community? We have an incredible opportunity, you and me. And I know, details. You cannot save the world. You have to check 100 emails. I get it. Outlook, Teams, Zoom, on the weekend. Who's that peeping through my Gmail? Emails on top of emails. We have problems, personal problems. Gotta lose weight, angry at the scales. I understand. I know very well what it's like to be a 300-pound Black man at Publix asking about the retail price of sea kale. I know. We complain about sleep. See, well, there are homeless children all over the Bay Area. Trust me, we sleep well. We complain about our diets, but there are food deserts and deficits in kids in St. Pete, frail, so hungry that they bite their fingers and eat their nails. Trust me, we eat well. What is the role of higher education in racial justice? Substance, more than another discussion. Couple it with some nuggets in the budget, but not just a drop in the bucket. Let's treat poor and underserved people in the Bay the same way that we treat our beloved. Teach, research, govern, but they are more than subjects. For decades, communities have cried out for help and we ignore, dismiss, block, neglect, treating demands for justice like a drunk text from a dumped ex. In both situations, that just makes people more upset. I don't mean to lecture you. I treasure you because I was that poor Black kid who was saved by people like you. I know your ability to change lives is immeasurable. I once lived in homeless shelters in Tampa. It was terrible, unbearable areas in America, impaired, in peril. But people like you were committed, kind, and careful. They taught us that we were not errors, we were Ariels. They gave us confidence. Can I be a professor one day? Be prayerful. Yes. People like you turn broken into miracles. Racial justice must be embedded in our missions, our job descriptions, media depictions, moral convictions, with all of our wisdom systems and scientific inventions. If we cannot help our own neighbors heal from their affliction, our sense of preeminence is a contradiction. If we advance science without advancing social conditions, then we must understand our sense of scientific merit is science fiction. Let us petition the administration, the hiring commissions, to consider racial justice when creating these academic positions and making budgetary restrictions and investment decisions. With information, commitment, and unity, we can reshape our classrooms, reshape our campus, and reshape their communities to be spaces that promote dignity, opportunity, wellness, and security. I know we're busy, but we can conduct our busyness beautifully. Thank you. I'll take it over to Michelle. Thank you very much.
Good, love it. Love it. Go to church. Go to church, Jessica. Go to church.
Let's go. Let's go. I'm there already.
I can't say much after that. Woo! Thank you, Mike, for closing us out with those powerful words. I'm going to leave it there. Jessica, do you have anything you want to say to close out?
Oh, thank you all. Thank you all. Gracias, Michelle, Devana,
Yes.
Shivani, Julie, John. Thank you. Gracias, Micah, Naya.
Yes, thank you, everyone. And gracias, Jessica, for facilitating this wonderful and powerful session. Thank you, Karen, for organizing it. And thank you, everyone who had a participatory spot. And for those of you who showed up, you added comments. This is just the beginning of the conversation. We welcome you to continue to engage with us, and you'll be hearing more from us with more sessions. And Karen, I think, has dropped the survey in the chat, and we want to continue this conversation so we can move forward. Thank you all so much. Gracias.
Gracias. Adios. Till next time, everyone. Appreciate you.
Thank you, Jessica.
Great spirit, great work. That's fabulous. I always hang out a little bit. If anybody wants to hang out, you can. Thank you, Devana, for letting me pick on you. Folks, don't worry, you can all head out at any time.
I knew it was coming, Jessica. I knew it was coming.
Thanks, John. Julie, I appreciate you bringing in Tashika, Dr. Griffith. So thank you for giving her your time. So I didn't call on you as much. You're okay with that, right? Good, good.
Of course.
Naya left. That was great poem to get us started. Thank you, Micah. It was really good. It felt so, it was like a great summary. Your poem was a great summary as well. So thank you for that.